Let's talk about the Green Bay Packers here for a little bit. Look, now that we're removed from the draft, we're starting to get into rookie minicamp. We can now dive into the weeds and figure out which players, which late round prospects, which undrafted free agent prospects, in some instances, the teams believe have a chance to be big time steals. And the Packers, they believe they found one in the 7th round in cornerback Kalen King to be a huge steal. Let's get into this article, and we'll talk about it more in detail on the other side. This is courtesy of ESPN. King went from can't miss prospect to can't believe what he was watching cornerback as the draft unfolded. It wasn't until the final minutes of the 7th-round draft when he got a phone call from the Green Bay Packers, who picked him with the 255th overall pick out of 257. Honestly, I think they may have gotten the biggest steal of the draft, said Terry Smith, Penn State's associate head coach / defensive recruiting coordinator / cornerbacks coach. No wonder King has a, quote, permanent chip on his shoulder, as he said at last week's rookie minicamp. I feel like I'll never forget that feeling, King said, and I feel like that's the only thing to make me go harder and keep me going forward. It's in the way too early mock drafts following the 2023 draft, at least 3 of them, Pro Football Focus, The Athletic, and Bleacher Report, projected King from the number 15 to the number 20 overall pick in 2024. So that means 1 year ago, pretty much everyone had him as a first rounder. He fell to 2 picks away from being Mr. Irrelevant. No wonder the Packers believe they got themselves a steal in King. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are, but first, Packers fans in the comment section below, of all the mid to late round and maybe undrafted free agent players added to this roster, give us the one guy who you think is going to have a strong early impact for the Green Bay Packers, and give us that guy in the comment section below. But Miles, give me your thoughts on Kalen King, and do you really think the Packers are right here that they have a big-time steal?
Yeah, Nick, when you look at this guy like King, if you look at him on paper, I mean, you see why he maybe fell a little bit. It sounds like a guy who, below average size. He's like 5'11", 190, probably average size. Below average speed, he ran between a 4.5 and a 4.6, depending on the combine or the pro day. But this is a guy where you look at his stats then and you go, all right, he was second team All Big Ten last season. Season before that, he was a second team All American, third team All Big Ten, led the Big Ten in passes defended, and he did pretty well in his first season, his freshman year as well. So you're like, all right, below average size, probably not elite level speed. This is a guy who's been productive. He drops 3rd, 4th round. He'd be good steal of the draft there. Well, this guy, like you said, 2 picks from being Mr. Relevant or undrafted. It is crazy that this fall from grace, people let him slide all the way down the draft boards. We talk about this all the time. Size, speed, whatever. Those things are important, but they're not as important as what kind of play you put out on the field. And this guy was an elite corner at Penn State, where he had a twin brother that he played with there who's a linebacker. This is a guy who came in as a very highly touted prospect at Penn State, and he did a lot of really good stuff. So for him to fall all the way almost out of the draft to the undrafted free agency, I think this is a crazy good steal for the Packers, who need some DB help. I think this is a guy who can come in and maybe slot into a couple places and be just the biggest steal that we have seen the Packers made in quite a long time, because this guy, like I said, great athlete. He's put great tape on the field. I even have a hard time saying below average. He's probably average size, a little bit below average speed, but he puts the tape on the field, and I think that's the most important thing here. And I think it's just crazy this guy fell so far.
Yeah, I agree with you. And one of the interesting things, and when we look for draft steals, we talk about on this channel a lot. One of the things we generally look for are guys who are getting better each of their years in college football. The one exception is the cornerback position. That is the most variable position in all of football, right? Just because so much of how well you do or not well you do is dependent on factors outside your control. If you have a great pass rush one year and a terrible pass rush the next year, your stats are going to change drastically. If you play against great quarterbacks one year and you play against terrible quarterbacks the next year, your stats are going to adjust accordingly, right? So corner is so tough to evaluate just because, like you said, a perfect throw beats perfect coverage, and no corner can cover receiver for forever. So if you're playing a great quarterback and if your pass rush is terrible, you're not going to have a chance. Doesn't matter how good you are, right? And I think that's what we saw a lot of from Kalen King. We saw a lot of that variability that is just part of playing corner. And so there's a lot of recency bias with him falling in the draft because they look at him in 2023 and say, it wasn't as good as 2022. But he just played against really good competition in a lot of instances. And frankly, Penn State had a lot of injuries on defense. They didn't have as good a pass rush consistently as they had in years past. So you can see how that definitely affected his stats. Now, again, I'm not saying he didn't maybe take a step back last season, but I don't think it's all on him. I don't think he suddenly forgot how to be a good corner as great as he was in 2022. So I think this has a chance to be a real huge steal for the Green Bay Packers, because even if he's just, let's say, 80% of what he was in 2022 for Penn State, like you said, that's like a third round value, fourth round value. To get him at pick 255, that's incredible value for the Green Bay Packers here. And I just think it speaks to the larger strategy that Green Bay uses. They're one of the smartest teams in football. We saw them pick up running back at a position a lot of people thought they got the best running back in the draft. Last draft, they got just a number of great playmakers in mid to late rounds. We're seeing a similar theme from 2024, and I think it's a sign that the Packers, the success they had last season, wasn't a short year run. They're making smart moves, setting themselves up for long-term sustained success.